Imagine a man who didn't kill with his own hands but controlled others so completely they carried out his horrifying visions for him. Charles Manson wasn't just a cult leader, he was a master manipulator who turned his followers into murderers, hoping to spark a race war that would destroy society. How does someone gain such terrifying control over people? Stay with us, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the power of persuasion and evil. Before he became one of the most infamous figures in American history, Charles Manson was a lost soul. Born in 1934 to a teenage mother, he grew up in reform schools and prisons. Abused, abandoned, and filled with anger, he was shaped by a world of rejection. Imagine a young boy, already lost in darkness, learning to manipulate to survive. In the late 1960s, the counterculture movement was booming, and young people were searching for freedom, love, and purpose. Manson saw an opportunity. He gathered a group of vulnerable, impressionable young followers, mostly women, and created what he called the family. But this wasn't a family bound by love. It was bound by fear and manipulation. Manson didn't just recruit followers, he broke them down. He isolated them, fed them drugs, and bombarded them with apocalyptic visions. Imagine being told daily that the world is ending, that only your leader has the answers, and that following him is your only chance at survival. Charles Manson dreamed of being a rock star. He befriended music industry figures, including Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson, hoping to break into the industry. But rejection fueled his rage. When his dreams fell apart, he turned his fury outward, and his obsession with fame became something much darker. Manson told his followers that a race war, which he called Helter Skelter, was coming. He believed that by committing shocking murders, he could ignite this war and take control in the chaos. Imagine being so brainwashed you believe murder is the only way to bring peace. In July 1969, Manson ordered the murder of Gary Hinman, a music teacher. It was the first act of violence that Manson orchestrated, but it wouldn't be the last. For the family, it was a horrifying turning point, one that would lead to unimaginable bloodshed. On August 8, 1969, Manson sent his followers to the home of actress Sharon Tate. She was 8 months pregnant. What happened that night was beyond comprehension, a frenzy of violence that left Tate and 4 others brutally murdered. Imagine the terror in that home as strangers wielding knives and hate shattered lives. The Tate murders shocked the nation. Blood-stained walls, a pregnant woman stabbed to death, the details were too gruesome to comprehend. For many, it felt like the world was spiraling into chaos. But for Manson, it was just the beginning. The following night, Manson sent his followers to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. They were tied up, tortured, and killed in a similarly brutal manner. Imagine sitting in your own living room, thinking you're safe, only to have that safety ripped away in a moment of sheer terror. Even after committing such horrific acts, Manson's followers remained loyal. They believed they were fulfilling a higher purpose, guided by a man who claimed to have all the answers. How could someone hold such sway over others, even in the face of unimaginable violence? In October 1969, Manson and his family were arrested, not for murder but for car theft. It was only later that their connection to the murders was uncovered. Imagine the moment investigators realized they were dealing with something far darker than stolen cars. The trial of Charles Manson and his followers became a media circus. Manson carved an X into his forehead, and his followers showed up outside the courthouse chanting and singing. The world watched in horror as the true extent of their crimes came to light. Manson wasn't just a criminal, he became a symbol of pure evil. His wild eyes, his eerie charisma, and his manipulative power fascinated and terrified the public. But beneath the myth was a man who thrived on fear and control. In 1971, Manson and several of his followers were convicted of murder and sentenced to death. But California abolished the death penalty, and their sentences were reduced to life in prison. Imagine the anger and grief of the victims' families, knowing their killers would live. Manson spent the rest of his life in prison, but even there, he continued to manipulate and inspire fear. He gave bizarre interviews, showing no remorse for his crimes. His words were chilling, his presence unnerving. It was as if his grip on the world never truly ended. Even decades later, Manson's influence lingered. From music to movies, his name became synonymous with evil. But for those who survived his reign of terror, the scars were far deeper than any cultural fascination could capture. The Manson family wasn't just a cult, it was a warning about how far manipulation and blind loyalty can go. Their story remains one of the darkest chapters in American history, a chilling reminder of what happens when humanity gives into its worst instincts. For the families of Sharon Tate, the LaBiancas, and others, the pain never truly ended. They became advocates for justice, fighting to keep Manson and his followers behind bars. Their courage in the face of such horror is a testament to the power of resilience. Was Manson born evil, or was he shaped by a life of rejection and pain? Psychologists have debated this for decades. His story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the human mind and its capacity for darkness. Manson used drugs like LSD to control his followers, breaking down their resistance and making them more susceptible to his influence. Imagine being so lost in a haze that someone else's voice becomes your reality. On November 19, 2017, Charles Manson died in prison at the age of 83. For many, his death was a moment of closure, but the fear he spread, the lives he destroyed, will never be forgotten. The story of Charles Manson is more than a tale of horror. It's a lesson about the dangers of blind loyalty, the power of manipulation, and the darkness that can hide behind charisma. Why are we so fascinated by Manson? His crimes were monstrous, yet his name endures in books, films, and music. What does this say about our culture and its obsession with the macabre? Manson's ability to control others was terrifying. He shows how vulnerable the human mind can be to those who know how to exploit its weaknesses. Manson's story also serves as a warning. Understanding the red flags of manipulation and control can help prevent others from falling into similar traps. Some of Manson's followers eventually broke free from his control. Their stories of survival and redemption offer hope. Even in the darkest situations, it's possible to find the light. The media's coverage of Manson turned him into a household name. But did this fascination inadvertently give him the attention he craved? While Manson's name is infamous, the voices of his victims must never be forgotten. They were mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, lives cut short by senseless violence. Decades later, the ripple effects of Manson's crimes are still felt. From legal reforms to cultural conversations, his impact goes far beyond the crimes themselves. Manson's story is also a warning about extremism, how hatred and fear can lead to unimaginable violence. The Manson murders marked the end of the 1960s, shattering the idealism of the counterculture movement and leaving a legacy of fear. Stories like Manson's must be told, not to glorify the evil, but to ensure we learn from it. Only by understanding the past can we prevent it from repeating. Manson's story forces us to reflect on the darkness within humanity and the strength it takes to stand against it. The story of Charles Manson is one of manipulation, terror, and tragedy. Which part shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest chapters of history.